October 22nd, 2020. That was the release date of the original Rundown 4. The first rundown where we started to hear about the man who would later become our guide, John Schaefer. Throughout these past 3 years, we've seen numerous text and audio logs about the man, and later on, we even started to interact with him in certain missions. And yet, we've never once met him face to face. But today, that all might change, as our objective in this level is to finally meet Schaefer face to face. Hello everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to the R8D1 level guide. As always, we're starting off with the recommended loadout, and today we've got a fairly simple and straightforward one for you. And that would be a bio-tracker and any 3 sentries of your choice. Bio-tracker is just the typical reason as always, so not really a whole lot to say about it. When it comes to 3 sentries though, I'm recommending these because I don't find the mine deployer or the C-foam launcher all that worth it to take into this mission. Sure, there are a few alarm doors you're going to have to make your way through, and mines and C-foam could help out a little bit for them, but there's just not that many moments where you can actually get good utilization out of those 2 tools, so I would much rather bring in 3 sentries with me, as those are helpful from start to finish. There are plenty of scouts in this level. If you do happen to wake them up, there aren't that many doors nearby you actually could use in combination with mines and C-foam to deal with pretty much all the enemies at once. So instead, I'd rather have sentries with me so I can just find a good place to hold out at, drop down 1, 2, or maybe all 3 of my sentries to give my team some relief so we don't have to shoot as much. And then when it comes to dealing with the alarms in the level, we just simply leave a door to open to funnel enemies down the route we want them to take, have our sentries set up at a choke point, and they'll deal with a lot of the enemies for us. There's never a moment in this level where the sentries are really going to fall off, so I greatly prefer them over mines and C-foam as they have much better utilization and I don't feel like I'm wasting tool refill at any point throughout the mission. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to meet Schaefer inside zone 425. You and your teammates will be starting off inside zone 420. In here, not a whole lot to take note of, just a few resources as well as a few sleeping chargers here and there, so go on ahead and take care of them. And at the far northern end of the zone, you'll find the security door to zone 421. This door is just going to have a full team scan tied to it, and inside zone 421, there are going to be 2 scouts patrolling about, regular strikers and shooters, as well as some chargers to deal with, and this is going to be a respawn zone where everything will come back except for those 2 scouts, so go on ahead and kill everything off on your first pass through here. Then at the far northern end of it, you'll find a security door to zone 422, which just has a full team scan tied to it. However, once you approach that door, a corrupt scan is going to appear. Now, corrupt scans are things you would normally want to avoid, like the NOM-V virus, because if you step into them, a tank is going to spawn in. However, this first scan is positioned right in front of the door, so you are going to have to step into it in order to even activate the door itself. So once everything else is taken care of and you're good to go, walk into the scan. This will spawn in a tank a few rooms behind you, and you kind of let it come to you, or you can rush out and deal with it. And once it's dead and you've gotten the resources in here, then do the full team scan ties to that security door and head into 422. As for this zone, it's kind of the same thing again. There are going to be 2 more scouts patrolling about. There will be a few regular chargers here and there. More corrupt scans, these ones you're going to want to avoid. And this is also a respawn zone, but again, those scouts will not respawn, so bare minimum, get rid of them if nothing else. There are also new resources in this zone, so once you've made your way to the other end and the scouts are dead, you can then do the full team scan to the security door to zone 423. As for this zone, there are going to be no corrupt scans in here, and it is not a respawn zone, so feel free to kill every single one of the enemies, which would include regular strikers and shooters, some chargers, as well as a few giant chargers here and there. Once everything is dead and you've got all the resources inside this area though, you can then go to the northern end to the security door to 424. This door is going to have a class 4 diminished alarm tied to it though, and as you can see with this map overlay, only 1 possible spawn location for these enemies, and 2 different doors they could take to get into our room. However, we are running a triple sentry loadout, so what I like to do is leave the left door, which I'm pretty sure is the one up above, open. That way enemies come across that glass catwalk, and then I have all 3 of my sentries somewhere outside facing towards it. That way they're just mowing through the enemies as they approach. Exact position of the sentries, of course, can vary depending on which types you brought in with you. Once you got everything set up though, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans. Most part is just going to be regular strikers and shooters, but a few normal chargers can show up here and there, so be aware of that. And once everything is taken care of, pack up your sentries and you can go into 424. Now, as for Zone 424 itself, this is kind of a central hub room we will be coming through a few times over. And in here, there are going to be a fair amount of enemies, mostly regular strikers and shooters, but there will be 2 scouts as well as 3 giant chargers. However, the giant chargers and the scouts will not respawn, so go on ahead and kill everything in this room once again. Reason I recommend that is because at the very bottom of this room, there will be a terminal and we need to put a command into it in order to progress further into the mission. However, once we put that command in, a full team scan will appear, and once the full team scan is finished, infectious fog is going to start rising up a pretty fair amount. So we ideally want to get from the bottom of the pit all the way back to the top. However, there are a lot of corrupt scans sprinkled throughout this room, so we're going to want to sprint as quickly as we can, and we don't want to have to run through enemies and risk waking up the room and getting pincered while we're doing this. So I will deal with these scouts stealthily if I can, or at least one of them, and then I'll shoot the other one, and then I just hold out at the top of the room and let the enemies come to us, as there's only one direction they can come from, and of course your sentries can help out with this. Then once everything is dead, I go down, look for resources along the way. If I can't find them, I'll use the terminal to ping them, and once I'm good to go, I put the command in, full team scan, and then run back up to the top as quickly as you can. Once you get to the top, you could then go to the western end to the security door to 426, which is now unlocked. This door is just going to have a full team scan tied to it. And inside Zone 426, there are going to be spitters, there'll be some infectious fog, although if you walk around and don't crouch, then it's not too big of a deal. There will be fog repellers you can grab, as well as resources, so keep an eye out for them. And at the western end of the zone, you'll find a security door to 427. Now, as for Zone 427 itself, it's kind of the same thing as 426. More infectious fog, more spitters, more repellers, more enemies. Although there are going to actually be a fair amount of giant chargers in this area, so be very cautious of them. I've had a few of my runs end just because of these giant chargers alone. And in the very first room of the zone, there will be a terminal you're going to want to put a command into pretty much whenever you want to. This command will unlock the security door to 428, which is where you have to head to next, and there's no negative effect from it, so you could do it before or after you clear out the zone. And then once everything in here has been taken care of, go to the western end to that security door to 428, which is going to have a class 3 alarm tied to it. And as you can see, once again, only one possible small location for enemies, and this time only one door that leads into room. Which, if you happen to have an explosive trip mine, go on ahead, shut that door, mine it, and have all 3 sentries in your room facing towards that door. But if you don't have any mines, just simply leave it open. That way the enemies are trickling in through and not grouping up in a giant horde on the door and then breaking it down and overwhelming sentries. Other than that though, not really a whole lot of setup you need to do for this alarm. The scans can go down below in the infectious fog, so of course make sure you have some fog repellers with you. And once you're good to go, deal with the alarm, and once everything is taken care of, you could go into Zone 428 itself. As for Zone 428, no enemies in here. There will be a few resources though, but more importantly, there will be a disinfect station, there will be a fog turbine, and there are going to be 2 different terminals. One of which is going to have a command you have to put into it in order to progress further on, which once you put the command in, you can then go back out into Zone 424. And when you get back to 424, keep in mind, respawn zone, so most of the regular enemies are back. And because you put that command into a terminal, there's also going to be a giant charger towards the top of the room where that staircase is, as well as 2 more scouts who are now down below. So once again, you're going to want to clear out the entirety of the zone, and once everything is then dead, place down all 3 of your sentries facing towards the southern open security door, and then go to the bottom of the room with the fog turbine. The reason for this is because in order to get to the security door to 429, we have to put a command into the terminal at the bottom of the room once more. However, once we put that command into it and we do the full team scan, an error alarm is going to be initiated that can only be deactivated by finishing the full team scan to the door to 429. And those enemies, from my experience, will only spawn outside of this area down south. So having all 3 of your sentries positioned facing towards that door will make it a whole lot easier to deal with this, because you can just casually walk up with that fog turbine and avoid the corrupt scans and get to the top of the room while practically dealing with no enemies whatsoever. Then when you do get to the top, go to that door to 429, do the full team scan, which will deactivate the alarm once it's finished, and then just shoot and kill any of the enemies still left alive and pack up your sentries before you open the door itself. As for 429, same thing as before, more enemies to deal with, 2 more scouts patrolling about, and there will be a fair amount of corrupt scans throughout the zone. Be cautious of some of them, especially on areas where there's multiple layers to the room, because going underneath a scan and having your head hitbox be a little bit too high can actually trigger these scans through the floor. You can make your way through the zone without triggering a single one of them though, and you're just going to want to clear out the enemies, grab resources, and go to the far eastern end of the zone where you will find another terminal. This terminal will have a command on it, which you will have to put in, but once you put the command to that terminal, a full zone alarm is going to be initiated. And as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for the enemies and 2 different doors they could take to get into your room, and how you set it up doesn't really matter all that much. I'll have this door open just to funnel enemies in through here, but again, we're working on a funnel strategy, and both of these doors actually work with the funnel, because as you can see the background footage, we are staying up above on the glass catwalks with our sentries positioned in front of us, as all the enemies have to come from that direction to get to us and our teammates. The doors behind us are tied to a room that the enemies will never go through, so we don't have to worry about that direction at all. So we just chill here, deal with the enemies as they come to us. Of course, make sure you don't step into the corrupt scans. And once you finish the full zone alarm, pack up your sentries, and then you can make your way back out into zone 424. Once you get here, you can then go to the north or into the security door to 425, which has finally been unlocked. As for this zone though, there will be no enemies in here whatsoever, and there's going to be no resources, but in the second room beyond the door you can open up, there will be a full team scan that appears once you get close. And once you step into it, you can get some dialogue, which is pretty much just telling you that Schaefer is with the other group, and now your objective is to make your way to KDS Deep, but that's pretty much the end of the level itself. Once you finish a full team scan, an extraction scan will appear at the beginning of the level, and you just have to make your way to it. But of course, we couldn't have a D tier extraction be all that simple, so once you finish that full team scan 425, 2 things are going to occur. The first one is that 2 giant chargers and 2 hybrids are going to be spawning on the other side of that door you could shut inside of this area with you. So you're going to want to blast your way through them as quickly as you can. If you have mines, go on ahead and shut that door and place your mines on it. If not, just have your sentries in the first room facing towards that area, and as soon as you finish the scan, rush over and just blast your way through them. Highly recommend though that you do not walk into the first room of 425 when you shoot at them, because if you stay in the second room, it greatly reduces the odds of any respawn enemies from 424 actually waking up, which is quite important, because the second thing that is going to occur is a 90-second countdown is going to be initiated. This countdown, once it hits 0, is going to cause a surge alarm to be initiated, and you're ideally going to want to be at or at least close to extraction. So what I like to do is, as soon as I finish a full team scan, run out, blast the giant chargers and hybrids, and as soon as they're dead, pack up my sentries if I did place them down, and then I quickly run back to the beginning of the level. I try my best to avoid any of the respawn enemies so I can just full sprint. If I have to run through 1 or 2 of them on the way out, not a big deal, just melee them, and just keep making your way through room by room. Of course, avoid the corrupt scans on the way out, as we do not want a tank or 2 or even 3 of them coming after us on our way to extraction. And once you get there, place down all 3 of your sentries and then just get ready to hold out for a little bit, as this scan does take a bit of time to complete. But assuming you're able to make it back to extraction and hold out and survive any of the enemies you woke up or the surge alarm, and you get the scan 100%, you are done and have completed R8D1. And that's all there is to it. R8D1 is an interesting level to me because of these corrupted scans. Throughout all of GTFO, we've come to know that whenever we see a security scan, we must step into it. It is our purpose in the complex to finish every bioscan that we come across. So to have scans that we're meant to completely avoid almost feels wrong to me. Although I'm very excited to see how much more terrifying these scans can become once the modding community begins to mess with them. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that I was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, we're already about to drop down into R8E1. Feels like the rundown is going by a little too quickly. Oh well. And hopefully, I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.